Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to the Thursday night edition of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very glad to have each and every one of you tuning us in as we get into true crime tonight, subject we do not cover enough of. But one of my favorite authors and friends, Alan R. Warren, is here. He's a best-selling author. Dirty Filth is here for a cartoon as well. And the best part, we have each and every one of you. We've got Race Fan in the gold medal position, Tim Mothman and his goatee in the silver. Laura Lobbs taking home a bronze medal tonight. Hello, Jimmy Gonzalez and Chef Chris, Roy Boy, Robert Lamont, Dino Bravo. Good to have you all here. Karen in the Woo Train. Chris 716 is here. Chris 716 will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Hi, Jennifer Patterson and Stephanie Kenny Blankenship. Big Dog, thank you for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, so thank you very, very much. Jenny White Bear, good to see you. Light Walkers, Time Travel, thank you for coming on in. And there's Paramarv and Sandy B. Kevin, what's up? Lee the Bee, good to see you as we continue on with our roll call. The lovely Amy W.C., Chris Laker, welcome to SOR's chat. And who else do we have? T-Bone, my man, nice to see you. Continuing on, Brown Dwarf, and who else is here? Bellenia, my man, always a pleasure. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Skip to Malou, what's happening, my girl? And who else is here? Scrolling on down, and we have Little Cam over on Twitch. Nice to see you, Lil Cam. Forrest Louie, welcome back, and thank you for that awesome super sticker. Love your support of SOR, Louie. Thank you very, very much. Pam Harris, always a pleasure to see you. Pam Harris will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Phil the Stalker, nice to see you, my man. As we continue on with roll call, there's Welsh Hammer, and who else do we have here? Terrible Times. You're early. Wow. Purple-haired Pixie Laura. Nice to see you. Badass Billy Gunn. He's an ass man. Marty Burback and just another guy named Harry. Good to see you both. Number 22 in your program, starting at center ice from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. Hello, Chris. Teen, how are you? Nice to see you. Excuse me. Hi, Susan, over on Facebook. Vanessa, Super Knower, good to have you both here. And Susan Fuller, welcome to SOR chat. Moving on, 5DRG, nice to see you. Political Foolishness, pleasure to have you back. Spacey Tree, it's been a while, nice to see you. And who else do we have in here? Mr. E, welcome to SOR chat. And Susan Fuller, thank you for that lovely super chat. We very much appreciate it. And let's see who else we have here. Let's get the radio side going. All right. We say hello to everybody listening in on the podcast and radio side. My name is Dave Scott. We're talking about serial killers tonight with best-selling author Alan R. Warren. Yeah, and we're just doing our roll call here as we say hello to Bill WD-40, who's lubing it up for tonight's show in the chat room, because you never want to go into a chat rough or a show rough, so you need that WD-40 in there to smooth it on out. All right, Brandon Coast, welcome back to SOR Chat. Helen Back, what's happening? Welcome to SOR Chat again, and we're caught up. Remember, the super chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show as well. You can go shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. Nothing ugly in our store, so you can wear it all the time, not just to the fancy places like flea markets and garage sales or painting the house. No, you can actually wear our stuff out in public and be proud of it. So go shopping at our website today. Here we go, everyone. Get those horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok in the Space Travelers Club. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great show of information tonight as we delve into serial killers and the brains behind them. Best-selling author of true crime, Alan R. Warren, is with us tonight. Then in hour number 3, it's jam-packed. Steve Stockton from Among the Missing. Then Robin Haynes comes in with the Cryptid Report. It's Dave 101 night. And following that, the weird news of the week. All right, I'm excited about getting this going. I hope you are too, as one of my favorite guests on this show is best-selling author Alan R. Warren. He's a producer and radio show host of the House of Mystery and Inside Writing right across the United States. He's written articles for True Case Files magazine and is a contributor for Serial Killer magazine. He's also completed 24 nonfiction books covering true crime, cults, human trafficking, history, and memoirs from 3 different publishers all around North America. He's one of the best and most knowledgeable writers of our time. Alan R. Warren, it's a pleasure to have you back on Spaced Out Radio again. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you. Good to be back.
It is. It very much is. Alan, you know, we talk a lot of weird stuff on this show, but we always tend to forget the humanity of it all. And I think true crime really falls into a category that we misrepresent a little bit too much here because we don't do it enough. And yet there are so many spectacular stories of humans doing, you know, not only heinous things to other humans, but it really makes you wonder how the brain ticks sometime, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's bizarre sometimes. You know, it's a hard thing to deal with at times because you know, it's endless. I never get surprised, but there's always something completely weird every time you go into a new case, and there's always so much bad stuff going on in certain people's minds. You know, it's crazy.
How did you get started in this? What intrigued you about dealing with things like true crime, cults, and the darker side of humanity?
You know what got me into it? I'm not exactly sure. It just sort of happened. I just sort of fell into it. I've always been interested in human behavior, but I don't know what drew me into it exactly. I just wanted to talk to people that were in it, like cops and detectives, and it just sort of it was an interest, and I was lucky enough to meet some people and go from there. I don't know what else. I don't know why I had that in me. It's hard to say.
Did you want to be law enforcement maybe growing up and just didn't get the opportunity to?
I think so. I think when I was young, and I joined the Air Cadets, and I was really into it in that way, but I don't think I was. I don't think I would have been the right person for it, to be honest. But at the time when I was young, I was certainly intrigued with it all.
Hmm. For you, as you kind of found your own niche in this, and you've written well over 24 books and hundreds of articles over time regarding this subject and this phenomena. I mean, how do you do it and still sleep at night? I mean, it's an ugly topic. I mean, you're not dealing with ghosts, and for people who don't know, the other side of Alan is he is one of the most gifted psychic mediums that I know of, and I met him through our good friend Merle. Okay, and Alan is incredible when it comes to paranormal investigation and everything, but this path seems to take you elsewhere.
Yeah. It's all the same, really. I don't know if you realize it, whether people do good things or bad things, they just do things, and connecting with people is part of it. With true crime, and that's something I don't really call it. It's just things. It's just happenings, just like you would in a paranormal setting. It's a happening. A lot of times people investigate paranormal and haunted places is because there's a crime there, a violence. There was a lot of anger and murder or something like this going on quite often. So there's a big connection there. There's things that people do to each other and themselves. And I think it ties to the same thing. It's something about how we operate. It's about our communication. It's about how we want to interact with people and how we perceive what's around us. And that's the biggest key right there. What we have experienced and what we believe in to be real. And then we react to that. And sometimes people get in the way. And I think that's where violence and murder comes out of it more than anything else. So in a roundabout way, they are connected.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the Gold Rush Trail that I live on, it is filled with violence and murder all the way from California and Nevada right up to the Klondike of the Yukon and Alaska border. I mean, that's like a death march back in the day.
Yeah. And it's constant, the Highway of Tears, and there's the I-45 down in the States and not Texas, it's the next state. So there's lots of areas where people tend to go to murder, like even the Highway of Tears, right? You've got a repetition of murder over 40, 50, almost 60 years. It's not one killer, it's several. And what happens is areas become very, they become the place to go if you're a killer. It sounds terrible, but it's a kind of how it goes.
I hate to put it in this terms. Is a place like Interstate 45 or the Highway of Tears in northern British Columbia, is that almost like a serial killer's Disneyland that they want to be a part of that?
Yeah, there's a lot of different reasons why they do. Some of it is to become on the list, be a part of it, like you say. And there's another group that it's a place you can get away with it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it happens so frequently, so long, that it's so easy to get away with. Where else could you practice out your technique, so to speak, or where else can you go and find someone and murder them, and who knows whatever else you're into, and you could just go home, and chances of getting caught are almost none. It's just it's the place to go. If you were that person, why wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds terrible.
No, it does sound absolutely psychotic.
Yeah.
To be blunt,
Yeah.
But I mean, this is kind of what we dealing with, because what is the statistic that the average human will walk by what 3 serial killers in their lifetimes and not even know it?
Yeah, that varies depending on what source you want to go to, right? And what you consider a serial killer. Um, Boy, there's a lot of variables, and you got to look at how many people go missing every year, and how many people end up dead, or how many people we don't know what happened to them. What part are they in this? It's massive. The U.S. is just like the drive-through of murder, and it sounds flippant, but it's true. It's just there's so much activity going on down there, and it is the key to the whole world as far as serial killing and mass shootings. There is something in the culture or something that goes on in the U.S. that's just rampant. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I really don't that understand that what makes somebody tick like that. What makes them go off? So when you have studied serial killers over the years, and we'll, in the next half hour, we're going to get to some names and just of people who I know you've studied over the years. What makes their brain tick? What makes them different from you and I?
I don't know how different they really are, other than they can make the move to murder. And I don't so I don't know how different they are. Like, it's what they perceive, it's how they've learned to live, um, and what's acceptable for the results they want. And that it's kind of very vague there, but you got to look at, there's people that they have different opinions of killing and murder, and what's justifiable and what's not. And so it's just sort of in there. It's really hard because, after all these years of doing it and meeting so many people in prison, and others, and even talking to really smart psychologists that have dealt with this, the more you know about it, the less you really understand. And that's a very cliche term, but it's true. The more years I'm into it, there's less I believe that there's a direct answer. Everybody wants to jump on things because of what they see on TV a lot. A lot of the television shows, they always put the serial killer as this sophisticated, smart, they're a genius. And they always have them doing all of these things that seem so well planned out and done, and everything's excellent. And then the profilers come in and give their profiles. 90% of that is not the way it is. If you really went through all these different killers and learned about them, you'd realize that's not true. They're not Hannibal Lecter by any means. If anything, the more you meet and the more you get to see, they could be the guy in the mall shopping when you're in there, when you're walking down. They look totally normal, and they act normal, and they have flaws, and they say things good and bad, and they're just like everybody else. And it's in fact, a lot of these last serial killers I've met, I would have no difference. They're just people I've seen every day anytime I go out to the store to shop or anything like that. It's just average people that have done these bad things.
But with social media, we see a lot of these newer so-called serial killers, putting manifestos on Facebook and YouTube, and really saying, why they're trying to justify their actions that are coming, or what have you. I mean, basically giving themselves up before they commit their crime, even though they're going to go commit their crime nonetheless. I mean, are we into a new age where social media, uh, that a lot of these serial killers are out there for publicity and popularity, even in death, if they get the death penalty or spend an eternity in prison?
Right, right. Well, the serial killer is going to progress. They're going to change, and not only for the conditions that we're in, such as like social media, like you're saying, and the easy access to each other and communication is so much different than it was even 20 years ago. Yeah, that's one big thing. The other thing is where does that age group grow up? You know, like the type of serial killers you had in the 60s and 70s were people that grew up with parents in the war. And there's a lot of relations to that. So you talk about, well, so what are the kids growing up? Let's say today, the 5 and 6 year old that was growing up through pandemic and the political terms and everything that we've seen in the last 10 years. How are they going to be affected? What's that going to do with the combination of where they're living with social media and stuff? Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's a combo. It's the setting you're growing up in, and then what conditions you have when you're the adult. So Charles Manson grew up in a particular setting, and where was he in the 60s? You know, in San Francisco and LA with the hippies and all the drugs and all that stuff, the love movement. So it was a perfect for him, and a lot of others like that. It's kind of a combination of before and now. And a person that writes a lot about that Canadian is Peter Vronksy, you know, the doctor out of Toronto. Some of his books are incredible, like Kane and some of the others that he's written about the serial killer. He talks about that a lot. And I think that's the really important key more than anything else, more than some of the profiles that come out after someone is killed.
Have you been able to kind of dissect the different profiles that are out there? To where you have an understanding of it as a best-selling author?
Yeah, I'm comfortable enough with the profiles, but I don't have as much faith in them, you know, because the truth is most of the profilers and most of what you see, like when you see again Mine Hunters, and you've got the 2 seasons of it, and people are really into it, and that's all great. There was a lot of good stuff that come from that. But you got to remember that the truth is the profilers usually can only determine and catch someone from their profiles. It's usually under 5%. It's not that accurate. It's not that efficient. It's very after the fact. And one of the biggest problems is so many of these killers, we don't have access to them, or the doctors don't have proper access. They can't really analyze them and evaluate them. There's very few of them that allow that to happen. And so you don't have enough other than, again, you look at the setting. Well, this person had a terrible mother or a terrible father. They drank a lot. They got beat. They killed animals at young ages. Like there's all these things you can put together, but it still doesn't give us any direction of where it's coming from. And why is it that one person does it? I've met people that have been awful killers, awful people, just awful. And they've had a better childhood than I did. Do you know what I mean? Like they had a way better life. And even if it wasn't great, it's still, I know people that have had terrible, terrible childhoods that have come out of it, and they're quite good. They're quite adjusted. They don't kill people. They're not out there raping and killing animals. So there's more to it, and I don't think we barely even scratched the surface. I think that's the honest truth.
Why does it seem to be more men than women who are directly involved in serial killings?
Because again, men perceive things, their position in the world. They perceive what a female is. We all do that. We generalize. We're pattern animals. We like to pattern everything. We have names for everything, classifications. Men tend to be more aggressive and a lot more physically active. And that's a very general statement because we see a lot of females that can too. But in general, men act out differently as well. So men can be more aggressive physically, and they tend to kill different than a female. A female tends to be more passive in their killing and tends to be more discreet, like poisoning, subtle things that will kill the person that they're after, but it's not a big explosive, rape, drag, beat up, or hang them from a rope, and all more violent, descriptive sort of ways. So I think it's more inherent with a male and more aggressive male than a female because of the perception of who they are in society.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's not a lot of Eileen Wuornoses out there.
No.
Yeah.
No, and when you get them, right, there's, again, how did she perceive herself? Not very well. And she considered herself to be looked down upon and hated. And she thought that men were the worst, right? So she had this aggression. And there was a lot of components to her, a lot of elements that really kind of, come to light. And she's probably not the only one. It's just become the more popular one. You know what I mean? It makes certain stories hit the news and kind of go all over. And it could be their image. It could be the way they talk. And some of them talk a lot. And she did. And so if the media loves it and you're really open to it, and again, like you were saying, social media, who knows what we're going to see in the next 10 years.
Oh, I could just imagine. I mean, social media, plus the fact that we really haven't seen the results of what happens to children with a lot of broken families these days, through divorce and other ways. One parent taking off and we look at it as a social state where these types of statistics actually do truly add up into what can cause somebody to feel like a misfit.
Oh, yeah. And that's what I was saying, and not even getting political. But when you look at the last 10 years of all the unrest and all the fighting and the marches and the protests and stuff like this, and if you remember yourself when you were 12 and 14 and 16, all these kind of very impressionable ages, you probably thought of yourself as good as your parents. You know what I mean? As smart as the adults, even smarter. Do you know that young sort of impression? So when you see parents acting that way, it's got to turn you off of how they are. Do you know what I mean? Just like it probably was when you were a kid. All of us go through that. And I think that there's a combination of that with social media and like the pandemic and all this other stuff that they're growing up in. That's kind of like really trigger something different for the ones that can't handle it. The ones that go off are going to go off a lot differently than Charles Manson did, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. Because, you can put 18 and over blockages on any website you want, but there's still opportunity for that 5-year-old out there to get into Pornhub or to, see other types of things that a 5-year-old shouldn't be seeing on the internet, let alone the amount of predators that are out there trying to lure children from children's gaming sites.
Right. Yeah. And see, and they change, right? It's just like, it's always gone on. And it just the access and the ability to do the bad thing just changes, and so the criminal progresses as well as the victim. They both move along in this, and we've seen that throughout the years. And you're old enough to know you've seen a lot of changes through, look at the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and look at it now. The way people live is so much different than the way they did 30 years ago. So if you can imagine too, a kid right now, a kid that's 5 and even 10 or 15 or whatever, they've only known social media, internet, and all this stuff their whole life. That previous life that we had, where you had payphones and you had to, and dial phones and and 3 TV channels, they have no idea what life was like living that way. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah, Al, I know. You and I both grew up in the days of Clifford Olson.
Exactly.
Here in British Columbia, where, our parents, nobody locked their doors in British Columbia until Clifford Olson started his serial killings back in the early 1980s. So Al, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. Best-selling crime writer Alan R. Warren is here tonight. You can find his books at any major bookstore or online. AlanRWarren.com. Make sure you check him on out. We're going to get into the brains of serial killers when we return on Spaced Out Radio. I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about writing a book about the missing feet?
Yeah, you know, it's come up a few times and a few people have mentioned it, but I don't want to get into something I can't get enough information on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember when I worked in the newsroom in Vancouver, and privately the VPD would, and even members of the RCMP totally believe there's a serial killer in Vancouver doing that.
Right.
But it's easier to blame it on suicide for to save mass panic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and plus, you know, you're in a position where if you say something then and you can't really back it up and it doesn't turn out true, then you're in trouble. So they're not going to jump on that serial killer sort of stuff. But no, I don't think there's enough. You can't get enough information on something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can't trust the information you get. So you're going to have to rely on a lot of instinct, and it'll be more fiction.
You must get a lot of shady phone calls, you know, from people. Like, have you ever had a phone call or a text message or email that just really, really scared you because somebody had maybe heard one of the stories you're working on or had worked on?
Yeah. Oh yeah. All the time. Less now because I have more of a buffer than I used to. But yeah, years ago. And it scared me. It used to scare me 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But not as much now. Not as much now. It's very seldom I get scared anymore. Maybe because now that I'm out 60, I don't care as much. I don't know. Maybe I'm just more used to it. I can't explain it, but I guess I've met enough bad people that it doesn't faze me as much. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It used to freak me out a lot more. And you know what? I can say half of it is bullshit too. You know, when you get the messages and the calls and all this stuff, and a lot of it is kind of some whack job somewhere, you know, and a lot of them have nothing to do with whatever they're talking about, but they dream that they do. And actually, they're probably the scarier ones that you got to be more careful of, you know. And that's when I tell them I live up in where you live.
Well, thanks. Thanks.
Just so you know. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. I'd say you would come see me sometime.
Oh, man. Yeah, come say hello.
Come say hello. I do Spaced Out Radio. Just come out and say hello. That's under my pseudonym.
Alan, who's Alan? My name's Dave.
Yeah, and that's just my writer's name, but my real name is Dave.
Yeah.
Come see me, please.
Yeah,
bring your guns. No problem.
Well, just give me a couple weeks till I get my license, then bring them. No, it's just it certainly gets a lot of attention from a lot of people, and sometimes it's a pain in the ass, and sometimes it's okay, you know. And you know, and you say sleep with sometimes I don't sleep. Sometimes it's terrible, actually, and other times it's good. So I guess it depends. Do you ever fight with yourself about because I know there's been times where you've talked to some of these serial killers.
Yeah.
Do you ever fight with yourself about maybe some information they've given you that you're like, God, I don't want to put this in the book, that it's just too grotesque?
Yeah. I think one of the very first ones I met down in Seattle, the guy that was put away for a murder in Chicago. And when I interviewed and I spent a year talking to him, there was a lot of stuff I found out that I had to fight over whether I was going to put in or not. That was a tough one. I think I learned a lot through that case. And when I got to some of the later ones, it was a little easier. You know, well, look at, the Wells Gray murder one. It was easy. It was easy to know what to put in because I just asked the survivors what was acceptable to them and what wasn't. You know what I mean? And they kind of give a lot of direction there, so that helped. If you don't have access to that, or if the survivors or everybody's kind of dead, then it's tough.
Yeah, true that. I'm gonna get you to hold on. We got about 15 seconds. Thank you, T-Bone, Susan, Louie, and Big Dog for the super chats. And don't forget to shop at our store, spacedoutradio.com. We do not have ugly swag, people. Here we go. Second half hour, Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go with the second half hour. Best-selling crime author Alan R. Warren is here tonight. He's got a great podcast called Inside Writing. And Alan, thank you so much for being here. Very much I love talking something different every now and again than Bigfoot or UFOs, and this is perfect, talking true crime tonight.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's always good to talk about murder.
Yes. Yes. Well, you know what? Anytime you get to talk about weird stuff, I mean, that's okay. I mean, we talk about a lot of serial killers that are out there, and the brains that go along with them. I mean, a lot of us think they are insane. A lot of us think, because we've never stood in those shoes, we've never had that breaking point of thinking that I have to do this in order to save my name or my pride or my respect or whatever it may be, whether it's an 18-year-old going into a shopping mall or whether it's, somebody else, taking out whatever situation and anger they have on people. I mean, when you look at it over time, we've had, we've almost sensationalized a lot of these heinous crimes, whether it's Charles Manson or we mentioned Eileen Wuornos or Ted Bundy or John Wayne Gacy or Ed Gein, and many of these people. Do they deserve that popularity?
No, not at all. Why? They're terrible people. They did awful things. If it was your family or someone you knew or close to that had been, killed or tortured or hurt by these people, the last thing you would want to do is turn on Netflix and see a movie of them. And they always have a good-looking actor or actress, and you know what I mean. They do the whole thing up, and it's crazy. It really is. But that in itself must mean we as a population desire something out of that, right? There's a reason why it's popular. There's tons of channels and shows and movies, and I don't get it. I don't watch any of them either.
Why do you think we want to popularize these people? I mean, you think Ed Gein turned into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and other horror movie characters have come from serial killers over the years. Why do you think we do it?
Well, there's different reasons I think we do it as a population, right? Like we hear about these stories and then we can learn and we can protect ourselves and be safe. There's a lot of different reasons. Maybe we can find out why people do things and help it and stop it from happening. And there's a lot of different reasons, but why these killers themselves become kind of like pop stars. They become like so people, that we look up to. That's sort of what's kind of disturbing. That I don't quite understand. Like you look at Ted Bundy or any of the stuff, they've become movie stars in a sense, and I don't get it, because they don't deserve that. They've done terrible things. It's not like they did anything good to help people. So I don't know why.
Well, you bring up Ted Bundy, and another one much like him would be Richard Ramirez.
Right.
Where Richard Ramirez literally thought he was a rock star, because of his crimes that he'd committed, expensive suits and the sunglasses going into the court, ladies following him all over the place, even though they know they'd never get any conjugal visits or anything like that. But I mean, this is true though. Like, you can't make this up.
No, and that this, when you say that, but the ladies follow in conjugal visits, that might not be true in his case, but in quite a few cases it is. I had serial killer, the guy, the Wells Gray murderer, who is in prison in Alberta, Scherer, and you can look at him. He's remarried to a woman, and she gets conjugal visits with him, right? And this is a guy that he murdered 7 people that we know of, and 2 children, and sexually assaulted them, burned their bodies. And why do people look for serial killers in prison to go meet them and marry them? What's the story with that? And it happens a lot, more than you know. And so I don't know. Why are people fascinated with killers? I'm not sure.
Well, you take that young man, and I forget his name. Maybe you know his name. I'm just saying this story off the top of my head here. The young man who shot up that high school in Florida a number of years ago. Right. I mean, there he was saying, and there are reports, women sending him negligee and perfume and condoms and all of this kind of love letters that they felt sorry for him, and that when he got out of prison, or when he finally was able to get guests, they were going to come and see him and make sure that he felt the love that he's never felt before.
Yeah, and it's true, and it goes both ways. Jodi Arias down in Phoenix, the same thing. She's getting all sorts of attention from guys, and they all want to be her boyfriend, or whatever. I don't know. I don't see what is it a need that we want to help fix someone or make them feel better. There's also a lot of people that say, well, they're innocent, or they didn't, it wasn't their fault. They tried to support someone, and they don't even know that person. They've never met them. They have no idea yet. They're 100% sure that person deserves their love and relationship, and I'm at a loss.
Is it though falling in love with the person or falling in love with the case? And I want to follow up by that, because when I was in broadcast journalism school, okay, I grew up in a town, in a city called Abbotsford, British Columbia. Okay, a border town for a lot of people who don't know, right along Washington State. And in the 1990s, there was a gentleman named Terry Driver who was nicknamed the Abbotsford Killer after he attacked 2 teenage girls, killing one of them and severely injuring the other. And then he taunted the town for a number of months before being arrested. But I remember covering his case on a couple of occasions, and just listening to the case and knowing that it's from my hometown, there was almost a little bit of an addiction of wanting to see it through bit by bit, because it was such a horrific crime, and things that took place throughout it, like putting the young lady's tombstone on the radio station police, or on the radio station's car in the middle of the day. I mean, ballsy things like that.
Well, well, you're a part of it. At least you were part of the community, and you felt like it was you probably knew someone that knew someone, you know what I mean? And you feel like it's in your home, it's in your backyard. So I that's understandable. And the addiction is understandable. But to start doing it with people you don't even know, where you'll travel to a prison and have sex with a guy, marry them, and you don't even know them, and they've done some really bad things. That's kind of a little bit bizarre. And I don't quite understand. And when I've interviewed people that are like that in that situation where they're married to these people, not to say this in a flippant way, but usually they've found God, and usually God has cleansed the killer. And that's actually everyone I've met that have been remarried. That's what the new spouse always says. Well, God's forgiven him. He's cleaned his soul, and he's a beautiful man, sort of. And that's sort of what you get from the new spouse. I don't know. I don't. Is that just an excuse? Is that just a way of being able to be with that person? But then there's plenty of men out there. Why would you have to go search out killers in a prison? I've never been able to figure that out, and why.
They're not going anywhere.
No, well, this is, and there is some studies about a lot of people like that have gone to prisons and have been hooked up with these prisoners, both male and female. And it seems like there's a condition that they call, some of the psychologists have come up with a condition of, and part of it is that spouse is where they have control over them. They're locked down. They're in a prison, in a prison community, so they know where they are, and they only have to devote so much time, and then they have freedom. But they still know where that spouse is. They never have to wonder, and that is part of that condition. So I can understand that to some extent, but like I said, it's hard to put yourself in those shoes.
So in your favorite estimation of serial killers, if you can have a favorite, that's probably a wrong term to use. Yeah. But what's your favorite one that you've either written about or have studied on?
Oh, geez, favorite.
Most intriguing.
Well, I think they all are, but I think because when I pick up a case, like a lot of people, I get all sorts of people sending me stuff about a case. Do this, or have you heard about this, or and stuff like that. And I look through a lot, but the ones I usually follow through on and maybe write about are ones where there's still people around that you can access. They want to be part of the book, but there's also something different, because I don't really get focused in on the murder itself. Like, what happens. I make sure people to read know this is the killing or the bad thing that happened. But I really like to get into the effect of that crime. So to speak, after the cameras are gone and after the spotlight's off and it's not on the news, where does everybody go and what happens to them? And how does this affect the world we live in and the community? So I'm a lot more into that in the books than just, talking about the blood and the gore and stuff like that. There's a lot of writers that do that. I'm just not that one. So it's more about the whole effect. So when you say favorite, I think they all kind of have weird stuff, right? But probably Russell Williams is certainly one of the more interesting ones in Canada. The Killer Colonel. He's probably one of the more interesting ones because he was totally beyond anybody's suspicion, being in such a high place, in charge of transporting the Queen and everybody around the country, dignitaries. That was probably one. At the same time, he went into 84 homes and burglarized and went through all the women's clothing, wore them, filmed himself, played with himself, and then it moved on to rape and then murder. I think that was probably one of the more interesting cases.
What about the Zodiac?
Well, Zodiac, yeah, it's got its moments. I think the Zodiac's fascinating because people are so caught up in who it was, and it's one of those. Geez, I don't know how many people have said it's their father or grandfather or uncle and stuff, and that's just it's absolutely crazy. Everyone, it's like Jack the Ripper. Everyone becomes the person that's trying to solve the crime, and so much of the evidence is just not there. It's gone, or we don't have it, and we don't really know. And so, a lot of it's emotional. It's emotional evidence. You know, I knew someone. My uncle he hated women, and he lived in San Francisco in the 70s, and then that's what they'll say, and they'll build a case around that. And I think that's fascinating. I don't know why people would want to do that, but
Do you think we've actually figured out who the Zodiac killer is? I mean, every year there seems to be a new press conference saying this is the person.
you know, I know a lot of the people that are involved in that, and I got a book on that, and I put all the most popular ones in. My opinion, just personal opinion, is no, we don't know. I think not one of them have it right. I think they have pieces of it right. But at the end of the day, I don't think anybody that's been named as a suspect is the person that did it. I really don't. I don't think we have that. I think we have a lot of people that were not the best people, that broke the law. They did bad things. And, you know, it's easy to lump them in, but I really don't think any of them are the Zodiac. That's my opinion. But then it's only an opinion too. I could be totally wrong. Could be they might discover it tomorrow.
Do you think Zodiac is still alive?
No, I don't. You know, I think there's a point where it's very seldom a person like that who's so enthralled in what they're doing, and they're so, I mean, God, this is before social media, but he was acting like he had social media, right? With all the letters and all the press and all the stuff. He was so involved in media and community and police that to just walk away from that and be alive 50 years later and not bring it back out, or, you know, I don't see it. I really don't. I think the odds are really against that.
Do you think that's a case that will continue on?
Oh yeah. I think it'd be like Jack the Ripper, right? It's really the American Jack the Ripper, in a sense that, you know, 100 years from now, we're all dead and gone and nobody's alive, but they'll still keep it going because it won't be solved. And some of the suspects will carry on just like Jack the Ripper, and new people will pick out other suspects. You know, it's really an endless pool when you get into a big city like San Francisco, just like London was with Jack the Ripper. You know, you have a couple million people to choose from. It's great. You know, it's great. Someone can find something. You know, look at Jack the Ripper, right? Look at Michael Hawley. He's one of the guys that does that in his latest book, and you know, he's got that Tumblesy guy who, you know, by all means was a creep. You know, we know he murdered people. He did things, and he carried a bag of female uteruses around, right? And traveled. I mean, as one does, I guess. I don't know. It's like, so he's a perfect suspect, but he, you know, that's what I mean. People like can come up with that. They can find these people in history, and it's so easy to throw them in as could be Jack the Ripper. Right time, right place. He does a lot of weird stuff, and maybe he was, but that's what I mean. So I think with Zodiac, it's going to be the same thing. It's just behind 70 years or whatever. So
Right. No, and I could see the parallel to Jack the Ripper, which you've also written a book on with that one. I mean, granted, they're 100 years apart almost. You know, do you look at both cases having a lot of similarities?
yes and no. Similarities in the rage, but that's about it. The output, like, but what they were trying to accomplish, like Zodiac attacking couples, and what he was doing and in his interaction was totally different than let's say Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper had an awful anger toward females, passionate anger. He wanted to kill them and in a bad way, and then he wanted to take them apart. So it's a totally different outlook. Again, you go back to perspective. What is that person thinking? What could they be thinking? And that's the hardest thing to assemble. If you start thinking about what Jack the Ripper was doing and what he was doing to the bodies, and in the short amount of time that he did it in, compared to Zodiac was more entertainment and more interacting with police through the media, right, through the newspaper. So that was part of his thrill, is the action reaction. So I said he would have loved today with social media. He would have been the perfect guy for that. But whereas Jack the Ripper, I don't think he would have liked the way we are today with social media and all that stuff.
Do most serial killers out there, say the ones that we don't know about or are unfamiliar with, I mean, that we have very few clues, like the smiley face killers, do they still work mainly on silence and blending in rather than being a social media puppet?
Oh yeah, and a lot of it is also, again, it goes back to who do they think they are? Like, who are they? Where do they think they're living? How do they see the world? How do they see who it is that they need to kill? How do they see what they're doing? Is there a reason they're doing it? Do they believe that they're doing something good? Do they believe that they do something that they have to? What's the motivation behind them? And how do they see things when they're out walking the streets? Social media might not be a very big part of it for them because it's not assisting in what they're trying to accomplish. So I don't think that'll change at all. The ones that are more prone to do social media are more of the not so much serial killer, but more anger, passion killers, more people on the cuff, more people that all of a sudden have a big they're just a breakdown or something, and they decide they're going to go shoot some people on the street, or they've had it, they're going to kill the wife and kids and burn down the house and they'll do it to show people that they're letting out their aggression. It's a little bit different. Serial killers usually have more of a thing that they think that they need to accomplish, a thing that they need to do, something they have to work through, or they're doing something good for themselves, the world, or somebody. Like there's some more to it than just a passionate. There's more thought to it usually.
Mm-hmm. And what is that thought, Alan? What is that thought that runs through their head that you've been able to figure out?
Well, most of it is because they see something, something's been wronged, and they're writing it in their mind, even if it's totally blown out of proportion, whatever they see. So they're fixing something. And seeing quite, I guess that's part of the real end of it is they can never fix what they're trying to fix. They can never really accomplish it. It's an endless string of events, and it's not going to end. It's going to keep going until they die, get caught, or something like that, because there really is no fix. And so that's kind of the illusion they're living in. So, it's not going to end when they kill someone, just one person.
And to think, how many are walking around there right now debating that exact same thing?
Oh, quite a few, especially in 100 Mile House, I think.
No. No, we save those for the lower mainland at the United States. But I mean, it is kind of interesting. I mean, because realistically, what is a serial killer? Is it somebody who is just picking and choosing, like Ted Bundy, or is it somebody like the Iceman who did it as a mob job? Is he a serial killer, or is he Was he just doing a job? I mean, there's a lot of things that we need to talk about in hour number 2 with best-selling author Alan R. Warren. You can find his books on his website, alanrwarren.com. Spaced Out Radio continues with Serial Killers on the Mighty SOR coming up right after this. Stay tuned. All right, Alan, I'm going to take a little bit of a break here. We got about 5.5 minutes. I'm going to put you back in the green room, or if you want to hang out with Dirty Phil here and look at his cartoon, you're more than welcome to. He's found the jellyfish.
I did the jellyfish, Dave. Hi, Alan.
Oh, hey.
Hi, everybody else. So they had the jellyfish UFO all over the social media and everything. So I decided that everyone's like, it's clearly bird poop on a camera lens. It's like, I'm not bird poop. I'm a floating jellyfish. Come on, people.
Well, the bird poop could be alive.
It could be.
Yeah,
living
it could
poop.
be a disguise.
So I got my trusty old Stanton the gray alien in there telling him what's up. And of course I had to stick a Sasquatch in the background.
Well, of course. They have
He's always sneaking around in the forest.
Yeah, they have purpose too.
He just looks really offended. Unbelievable. Alive poo.
How rude.
That's going in the next calendar for sure. Definitely. Oops. Didn't connect the line all the way there. There we go.
Well, he should be fingering him.
Uh-oh.
No.
Ruined it. There we go. Oh, yeah. Corbell needs a copy of that print. I should... If anybody has his email address, send an email to bookings@spacedoutradio.com and I'll ship him the whole entire thing itself. Let's just scoot that up a little bit there. There's a flower, you can't see it. I usually like to put a flower in there too. A little hidden UFO. There we go. Maybe secretly Jeremy Corbell's watching the show in his spare time.
Well, you just never know who's watching.
I always figure maybe there's like some CIA guys watching or something, and maybe they like went and bought a calendar or a book or something from me. It's just sitting on their table somewhere at home, and people come over and read it. And like, what the hell's this? The guy's like, well, it's some weird Canadian guy draws cartoons on this show that talks about aliens. That'd be awesome.
I work with this guy I used to work at the CIA.
I don't think they ever don't not work for the CIA. It's probably like a lifetime thing.
Well, there's a certain amount that they have to be within a certain character, I think. But he does radio now, and
I'm going to go, after Dave comes back, I'm going to go plug this onto X, formerly Twitter. Just
excrement.
Corbell's name. Yeah. Plug Corbell about 100 times for it. That'd be pretty cool. Actually, I had one guy buy 10 copies of my book, which is kind of interesting. It's like, yeah, hopefully he gives that to somebody.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, I've thought about making t-shirts. However, I don't think any of these things actually would look good on a t-shirt. It's more just like a book type thing.
Yeah. Huh.
Hello.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, I'm Dave.
I'm Dirty Filth. I enjoy long walks in the graveyard.
How cold is it in Edmonton?
We were at minus 32 today. And when trucks were coming in, warehouse was 20 degrees, open it up, pull the skid off the truck, down to like 14 in no time. Terrible.
Oh, that's just cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Oh, but it's January. It wasn't cold before now, right? Right. So
No,
got
we
pretty
got
lucky.
Problem is what's going to happen this summer now, right? The lack of snow.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not too much of a heat fire thing again, like every other.
Are you in town in Kelowna, or are you?
I'm like north of it. I'm in Carr's Landing, and so it's it's like I'm a half hour from the city, but it's close enough.
Yeah, my sister's place almost went up. The entire complex they live in almost went up. It was close.
Oh wow, she's West Kelowna there.
Yeah, on the other side of the lake.
Yeah, it's across from me. Yeah, it was pretty wicked. This last one came on quick, as it usually does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty freaky.
Yeah, we
have a good day, gentlemen.
All right, Dirty. Take care, buddy. Yeah, I think we're waiting for the east side to burn here. That's what everybody's preparing for. We've been hit all around, but the east side. So we'll see where that goes. Good morning, Peter Benton, and thank you to Big Dog, Louie, Susan, T-Bone ×2 for the super chats. Very much appreciate it. Want to remind everybody that you can get your tickets at info@spacedoutradio.com for the 3rd annual SOR fan party in Reno, Nevada, May 10th through 12th. Only $100 for VIP tickets. You get a swag bag and a lot of cool stuff. So we want to see you there at info@spacedoutradio.com. Here we go, everybody.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam is set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Jansky. Jansky is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio, Instagram @Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can follow us on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go again. Alan R. Warren, one of the top true crime writers in North America. We're talking about serial killers and the brains behind them and other mysteries going on. Alan's website, alanrwarren.com, if you want to find his books, even though they are at every major bookstore. Alan, thank you for joining us.
It's always a pleasure, Dave.
Yeah, we don't do this enough. Totally don't do enough.
Yeah, you need more killer.
Yeah, you need a killer instinct. That's what I need.
Yeah. Vampire killer, I actually wrote about the vampire killer.
Yeah?
He's Canadian.
Is he? I did not know that.
Yeah, he did. He killed 5 in Montreal and 1 in Calgary, and that's where he got caught. There you go.
I'm still waiting for you to do a book on a weird book on Merle and myself.
Well,
let me tell you why.
Okay.
Merle, Mike Morin.
Oh yeah,
Merle. We call him Merle around these parts.
Yeah, Merle.
Yeah, good old Merle bird gets the worm. But you got to talk to him about the weird stuff that's happened at Flight 21, Canada's largest unsolved mass murder, which is a plane that blew up in 1965. And 52 people died. It's still an open case. And it happened right outside my town here, about 25 miles southwest. And believe it or not, we've investigated there twice or a number of times. paranormally speaking, and twice we've had Sasquatch encounters there.
Oh, how do you relate the two? Like, what do you think? There's a
I
correlation?
Yeah, I believe, and it's going to sound weird, but this is just a theory of mine.
Right.
I think that Sasquatch protects the area because of the tragedy there.
Oh. So you think how did that happen? First of all, did the plane actually explode and then fall to the
Yes.
ground, or did it hit something, or what?
No, there was a bomb on board the plane. One of the theories is when it was there was a couple who were getting a divorce down in Vancouver, and they were flying back to the Yukon, where everything was going to be separated. And the man couldn't handle it, had a bomb in his briefcase, and it accidentally went off. And the people that perished on the flight, they all fell as the plane split in two in the air. And then at about 10,000 feet, then came crashing to the ground. And it was in such virgin forest at that time that they didn't even have roads or like logging roads cut into the forest for that area as of yet.
Oh, wow. So you've been there. Is there still ruins there or
Yes.
leftover? Oh, there is.
Yeah, ruins are there. You could see the angle that part of the plane came down on, where the trees have been not lopped off, they've grown, but
Right.
where tops of trees were lopped off, and it's pretty interesting.
Wow. And so any other things you've discovered there when you say paranormally? Was there anything else you picked up?
We actually, do you know Bill Hauser?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Bill Hauser came up and we investigated that one time. And we actually, on his ghost box, got a name. One of the voices gave the name of a person. And when we checked that name, they were on the flight of victims.
Wow. And you just got the name, no message, eh? Huh.
No message, just the name.
Wow.
It's very intriguing.
Yeah. Well, what did they end up ruling it? You said it's open case. There's no.
It is still an open case with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Right. So nothing was solved, and
no, they believe it's one of four situations.
Right.
And they haven't been able to figure out which one yet.
Yeah, and they were so loose with the planes back then too, right? People would say, well, how could he get on the plane with a bomb? Or it's like, well, you could go up to the thing and just pay cash and get on the plane, right?
Absolutely. You just walk right on. I mean, that leads into a strange book that you've written on DB Cooper.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And that's another case, that's really crazy. But I've been on the DB Cooper podcast too, and I went through all the theories and I kind of put it out. And the show on Netflix right now is based on that book as well. So the interviews, and you know what? I don't think he got away. I get a lot of flack for that, but I don't think he survived it, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I don't get the feeling that there's I just don't get that feeling. My personal feeling when I'm around, I don't feel like he survived. And plus, I don't think there's really a lot of evidence that he did survive, especially with them finding the cash, a third of the cash or whatever, a year later in the river. So I'm kind of mixed on it. I'm mixed on it. I'm a simple guy. It is what it is. Like, people have tried to come up with conspiracies around why they found the cash a year later, and they come up with a lot of elaborate stories. But it's just, I'm just really simple when it comes to that. You can't just make up stories that could happen. You got to have something behind it, some evidence, something, right? So I'm not as hopeful that he survived.
I mean, but with that case, the way he was able to know everything about that plane, that the plane had to fly at a certain speed, with the ladder down, in order to make sure that A, it could still be flyable, but B, safe to jump out of at the same time.
Right. Yeah. No, he had it. He had it down. He had some. It was thought out. Right. Not only that. The 4 parachutes. He wanted to. Make sure he didn't get a fake because they thought he would take a hostage or something. So he had it all planned out. Like it wasn't just like get on and on a whim and just kind of do it. He had it planned out, and he did have some experience in it for sure. And of course, his intention was to survive. Hopefully, that he didn't do it just to die. He had an intention. I don't know. That's just my personal feeling. So
Right. Well, I mean, hey, you're allowed. You're allowed your opinion, and if people understood your great intuition, they'd probably put a lot of stock into what you're saying there.
yeah,
You know,
I just sort of leave it at that but I just have that. For me, it didn't go as he planned, and he didn't survive. That's the best way I can say it. But it was planned quite well. It was thought out well. It had the possibilities, but I'm not feeling. And I think people want to feel hopeful because he was kind of looked at as like a little hero, right? You know what I mean? An underdog.
a modern day Robin Hood, could we say that?
Yeah, and that makes people feel good. So they don't want to hear that he didn't make it. They want him to have made it and to have lived happily ever after, sort of thing. We want that it's kind of the Robin Hood thing. You're right, I think, and it's a nice thing. So yeah. So okay, so he made it.
I want to ask you, because one of the more intriguing stories, and I've always said this event is what created reality TV, was the O.J. Simpson case. And you've written a book on the O.J. Simpson case. And we all know the famous line, and on the cover of the book, if the gloves don't fit, you must quit.
Yeah.
That's the picture that you have on there from the statement of Johnny Cochran, one of his lawyers. Just your thoughts on that case some 30 years later now.
Well, again, that was one of those that what I wanted to do was talk to everybody that was involved, Marsha Clark, and I got through everybody, even OJ's manager. I had a good session with each one of them, and I kind of put it all together. And I think at the end of the day, the unfortunate thing is that the timing, the way the race relations were in LA at that time, especially after that Rodney King beating, and they got the cops weren't convicted of anything, and so that caused a big riots, and all that stuff was happening. So the timing was bad, as in trying to convict him in LA, and plus the media storm, and this was like no other case ever before, and very seldom since. I mean, they've certainly tried to have an exciting case like that, but I don't think anything will ever really top that. I think it's like the Beatles. It's a done deal. But unfortunately, when you televise everything, I'm a strong believer that what it does is it changes the outcome, and I don't think justice is served. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that they should film all of the trials, but they shouldn't show it live. They should show it after the fact. Because if you think about this, how can you expect them to do their job and do it well when you've got millions of people watching you, and every newspaper and everywhere you go, there's people outside your door, and they're all writing about you. Look at her hair, look at the tie he's wearing, look at this, look at, you know what I mean? Constant barrage of stuff. I don't see how you can really function. Even the judge and the jury and everything, it's just you can't get proper justice through the way we have trials by having that intense of scrutiny. That's how I believe it. But so I'm thinking, in my opinion, I think that he got away with murder.
Well, the second trial really proved that, when the family of Ronald Furman sued him, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't have the defense team because you could no longer afford it. Number one, I mean, but I mean, it was weird, and I've never really thought about it. The way you just put that is that court case became more of a soap opera and a fashion show. I
Right.
mean, remembering Marcia Clark when she first walked in, I mean, she looked like somebody who was haggard after a couple bottles of vodka, heading into court. And then by the end of it, she was flat ironing her hair and
Yeah.
wearing less frumpy clothing, and it was kind of weird to watch her transition.
Right. And you got to think that these were all people that had no exposure to the public other than just basic stuff. And all of a sudden, they have millions of people watching. They have, trashy newspapers putting up pictures of Marcia Clark when she was 20 on the beach with no top. They dug up everything and they slammed it and they put it out there every day. And it was 24/7. As people, they're not used to that. And that they didn't come from that, and all of a sudden they're thrown into it like they were, some Taylor Swift nowadays or something, whoever's the biggest star. You know what I mean? They were just thrown into the limelight. Everything they did, everywhere they went. I don't know how you can function on that kind of pressure properly, and I don't know how any of it could be proper justice, no matter how it turns out. And again, look at the climate of the city. So, I think that was a really unfortunate thing. It became more of a show and entertainment. It became a reality show. You're right. It's really kind of what threw people into that, the dawn of court TV and all that stuff. So,
Oh yeah,
it's unfortunate.
I'm still a firm believer that was the start of reality TV, unfortunately. And, and that's why we see half the smut that we do today rather than being more educational as it should be, But you also have written a book, before I get to some audience questions here, that really, really intrigues me. And it is about mysterious celebrity deaths, and on the cover, one of the cases that to me is still very, very struggling is the one of Kurt Cobain, the former lead singer of Nirvana, and really the king of the grunge era of rock and roll back in the beginning of the 90s. And, him joining the 27 Club after taking his own life.
Right.
But there's controversy over that.
Oh, there's a lot of controversy over it. But, first of all, before I even get into that, I have to admit that I know Courtney Love. We used to hang out in Seattle. I lived in Seattle a long time. I was working at Charlie's on Broadway, and I was working at a tavern, and we used to sit on Broadway, and she used to freak out on people all the time. So I know Courtney Love on a different level. And I even write that in the beginning of that, so that people can't say I hid it or anything. This is straightforward. You know what? The controversy, a lot of people have tried to tie her in as murdered him. She was the one that killed him and all that stuff. And I say chances of that are 99 no. There's just no way. No way. I don't, there's just no, and people say that's because you're friends and all that stuff. It's like, we don't hang out now. We used to, but there's no way it happened. And the evidence doesn't support it. And I had some of the, like Richter, and even the guy that sold out a lot of the story. Like there's a docudrama out there called, I think it's called Bleached or something like that. And I watched it, and the private detective she had hired had done all these recordings, and then he made this show. He's a complete sleaze. Okay. He even was trying to get an interview with Courtney and me and do a recording and all that. And he wanted to pay money and all this stuff. He's just a creep. I'd say 90% of that stuff is made up, and even half the stuff they say in it's not true. But I've had them in there, and I wrote about it in the book. But I'll tell you what, she's not behind the murder. He tried to kill himself a few times. they even faked the letter, like his suicide letter, and they even said on their program that it was written by him. And we had the FBI forensic analyst. We had them. I talked to her. We recorded it. I even have an episode on that you can listen to of all of these people. It's linked in the book. And she talks about how they actually changed her words. They actually put a sound bite to make it sound like she said it wasn't written by him. It's not true. It's fake. Like they totally did a terrible job. You see, and when someone actually, to me, when someone lies and creates evidence to prove their point, I no longer put them as viable. It's no longer valid. I don't. If someone makes a mistake, that's one thing. But when they actually created a soundbite and they created evidence that was fake to try and prove their point, and they did that knowingly, to me, you can't trust anything they say. I don't know how you feel about that, but I write them off if they fake it. You know, they actually, because you know what it takes to go in and that would be like you taking this interview tonight and going into the studio and putting in whole other words instead of me saying it, and you can have it said it sounds like me, or take bits of my words and put it together. That takes effort, and someone takes effort to create a lie. I write them off. So that's my opinion on that. Not only do I know her, but I also write it off because they actually provably made fake information.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And so you think it was 100% his depression and anxiety that had him make the ultimate decision?
Yeah, terrible. And the amount of drugs he was using, and the drinking and the depression. He walked out of rehab. He was actually on the hunt. That's why she hired the private eye, because he had just escaped from his rehab of trying to kill himself before. And he gets his other best friend, to buy the gun, the rifle. It is what it is. I mean, it's sad. It's really sad. And if anything, you could put on her that she wasn't a very supportive spouse, and she wasn't there. You know what I mean? She was down in Palm Springs. She was in a hotel having parties while he was going through all this. So it's not, so you could put that on her, and that's true. But she didn't go down and pull the gun, or she wasn't flying down and hiding out and doing all that stuff. That's right. You know.
And if I recall from the Duff McKagan autobiography that Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses had written back a few years ago, he was actually on the plane with Kurt Cobain, and they walked out of the airport together, and that was the last time that they had seen each other, because they had just both come off separate North American tours and were pretty beat up after all the travel that they did, and they were just both looking to get home.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff. If you really look at the evidence and all that stuff, I mean, it's just a sad situation. And if anything, he probably felt very alone, and he wasn't very supportive in his family life at the time. And I think that didn't help, you know, but she didn't shoot him. She didn't do any of that stuff. None of that. I mean, I've even talked to the cops that were there, and even the one that reanalyzed the weapon and everything else years later. And yeah, it just didn't, you know, he killed himself, and it's a terrible thing. It's an awful thing when someone is that depressed that they actually have to go and kill themselves when there's so much to live for. Right.
Well, I fully understand that, you know, but I think it wasn't it one of his final straws was they were talking about divorce, and, you know, he was going to have to give up a mini fortune to somebody who, you know, he forgot to sign a prenuptial agreement with.
Yeah, yes and no. It wasn't quite as cut and dry as that. They had been talking divorce since the day they got married. They'd always had that. They had a terrible fighting relationship, fighting, loving. They were up and down like a whore's nighty. And there you go. It was just, they both loved Frances Bean, and they, it was just one of those things. The
Right.
lifestyle was not good for them trying to have a relationship.
Alan R. Warren, we got up until the top of the hour here on Spaced Out Radio. When we return, we're going to get to some audience questions and more on serial killers, strange cases, and more. You can find his work at alanrwarren.com. We will be right back on Spaced Out Radio.
Wow. Sorry. I guess that wasn't really, I guess I could have been a little bit more exciting, hey?
I thought you were great. I really do.
I could have blamed it on her, I guess. I don't know. It's also hard. It's different when you know someone too. You know what I mean?
Well, I think Dave Grohl still feels that she played a major part in that. Because in the end, because I think he feels she was in it for the money.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's all sorts of, I'm not saying she's great. In fact, she's the type of person that you're sitting there and there's like 6 or 7 of you having coffee on the street, kind of like a hangout. And in the middle of nowhere of conversation, she'll get up, push the table over, run out in the middle of the road, grab someone and start beating on them for no reason at all. You'd be like, what just happened? Like, she's like 0 to 60 in a second and completely bizarre. I'm not pro necessarily on her behavior, and I don't think she would be a great wife. Then I don't want to say that now, but at that time, no way. She was in it for the party. But when they were saying, like Richter and him was saying that a lot of that last album she did, which was a really big hit for her, that big album with Hole, was written by Cobain. No, majority of it wasn't. Majority of it was written by her and the guy from Smashing Pumpkins. They were because they were playing together and fooling around, and he recorded a lot of that album with her too. So it was more his influence than Cobain.
Billy Corgan.
Yeah, Billy Corgan. Yeah. So that was more the truth of that. So it wasn't him writing the album and giving it to her, and none of that was true. No. So, but that's what I mean. When things kind of get blown out, people get emotional about that, especially when someone you like and they kill themselves or they die, however they die. It's an emotional thing, right? So
very much so.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard because she's easy to dislike. She's easy to hate. And I can see why people do. And I only knew her when she was on drugs and really freaking out and doing stuff. So apparently she's a lot better now.
I think Frances Bean just got married too.
Yeah, she married someone that's kind of famous. I forget somebody.
I'll Google it.
Yeah, she was, and she's an artist, hey, because she does a lot of art events like painter. So yeah, I didn't know
she was married prior to that. She married Riley Hawk, but right. She was a 3-year marriage to Isaiah Silva, whoever the hell that is.
Yeah. Well, they've got some sort of that new guy she's with's got some sort of background. He's known. He's someone's son or somebody's something. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Somebody famous.
Wow, she still receives $95,500 per month from royalties related to her father's estate.
Oh, there you go. There's plenty to go around.
Holy cow.
Could you imagine? That's a pretty good salary. I mean, you make a little more, I know, but
hey, if I made your kind of money, I'd have a butler.
No, you don't need a butler. No. You like doing the cleaning yourself.
No. Nope.
No, the snow plowing. You don't like
No.
doing that?
No, don't like doing it.
Gets tiresome.
Mm-hmm.
Gets tiresome.
Yeah, actually, I don't mind doing it. I shouldn't say that I don't like doing it. I don't mind, but it all depends on the temperature outside.
Yeah, and how you feel. As you get older, certain days you don't feel like it. You know.
I got a big driveway.
Yeah, so do I.
You know, that's my issue.
Yeah.
I got a big driveway.
Yeah, it's a pain. Well, don't you get a truck and have one of those plow things on the front of the truck?
No, my neighbor does 2 doors down.
Well, get
But,
that guy over.
Yeah, I should.
You know,
I should. A big thank you to T-Bone tonight, Mama Sue, or make that Susan Alloway and Louie and Big Dog for the super chats. Very much appreciate the love. Sorry, Susan Fuller for the super chats. Very much appreciated. Here we go with the next half hour, everybody. Here we go with the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate you tuning us on in. Wonderful time to share some stories with you. Reminder, though, that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Final time tonight, we say hello to Alan R. Warren. That is his website as well. If you throw a .com on there, one of the most successful true crime writers in North America. And we thank Alan for being here with us tonight. How you doing, my friend?
I'm always doing good, even when I'm bad.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's tacky. Oh, well. I'm doing good. It's good to be here.
We're going to start off with some audience questions here.
Uh-oh.
And this is Donovan right off the bat. I know we talked a little bit about this, but who do you think, Alan, was the Zodiac killer?
Nobody that they've mentioned. Every one of those suspects that they brought up, and there's been TV shows on and members and families and all that stuff. Every single one of them, I'm not really. I'm not sold on any of them, to be honest. And I think that if you were going by pure evidence and physical evidence, and even some circumstantial, and not feelings, I don't think there's anybody there that I would, I guess Arthur Lee Allen. I guess there's a few that you could investigate maybe further, but I'm not really a fan of anybody that they've chosen. So that's my opinion. But
well, you're allowed that one.
Yeah. I'm not sold on it. I used to be more into it, and I'd jump on things and stuff, but as of late, and after you talk to a lot of people and meet a lot of people and see a lot of evidence and kind of weigh it out and stuff, and you think, well, if I was the juror and I was supposed to say guilty or not, I would have a tough time with any of them. So there you go.
I can see where you would feel that way. The one thing that I'm interested in, though, is, with all the evidence the Zodiac killer put out there publicly to the newspapers, to the police, to the mayor, taunting all of them that he was going to strike again. What kind of amazes me is, since the last few decades, that the amount of clues have gone absolutely cold. Like, there's nothing fresh. We haven't found the gun. We know what he sent to the newspapers. What was translated, what hasn't been. Is there still evidence out there that still needs, to go over one extra time that maybe hasn't?
I think no. There could be something that turns out, but I think for the most part, everything's gone over. Everything was really tainted, right? There was no good evidence that they could analyze better now, at least that I'm aware of. Maybe there is something, and maybe there's something they'll get some DNA of somewhere down the road. But as it stands, just like the other one in California that they caught, the east area rapist, and that came out from some DNA. So there's always that possibility of some piece of evidence somewhere where they can get it. But the unfortunate thing is, when you're talking the 60s and early 70s, everybody touched everything. Everybody handled everything. Nobody, it wasn't secured like it is now. They never even thought about things like DNA and stuff, right? It just wasn't on the mind. So things are pretty tainted in that way. And but you keep your fingers crossed. East area rapists, they got through a piece of DNA, through 23andMe and stuff, and that was quite a feat. So there's that possibility that something like that could happen, and I think that's kind of the only hope. Maybe something that they collected. See, that was the other thing. Remember back then, each police precinct held their own evidence. They didn't work together. And so, because each murder was in sort of different jurisdictions, so you have different police forces that had different things, and they never combined it, so to speak. So I think there's issues there as well. So what's left and what they can really test, I don't know. I'm not quite as hopeful as it was with the East Area rapist, but you never know.
All right, let's get to another question here. This one from Lightwalkers. Hello, Mr. Warren. What psychological classification do you feel the alleged Gigolo Beach serial killer Rex Herman belongs in?
Oh, I couldn't answer that. Sorry. I don't know enough about that case. Sorry. That's one of those ones that I don't have enough information on and haven't been a part of. I can only do 4 or 5 cases a year.
Yeah.
It's just, it's limiting because you got to do a lot of traveling. And then the COVID really hurt with meeting and traveling and actually going around. Right. And the last I was seeing that David Sharing guy in the prison October before the COVID hit. Flew back home and had interviewed with him for 2 weeks. And things take a long time too. Like when you go to meet someone in prison like that, it's not like it is on TV where, it's a big production. It's like when I met Sharing, I had to make appointments every single day for 2 weeks, and they give you 15 minutes at a time. Right. So it's like you walk in, you have to get searched completely and stripped down, and you get in there and you get 15 minutes, then you leave and you come back, do the same thing the next day, and you do that for 2 weeks. It's a pain it's not like it is on in the TV, right, where you sit there and they're having a smoke in a big room and they're sit there for 6 hours and everything's great. I'll tell you.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. The psychological classification, though, does kind of interest me in that question regarding, is every serial killer different in their motivation? I would say it has to do with sex, loneliness, and money.
Yeah, and again, and they put generalized classifications in these things. When you got the 4 main classifications, and then you start subclassing. Again, the biggest problem is we do it from the outside in. It's very seldom we actually sit there and spend a couple of years, and actually a trained psychiatrist sits there and works with that person for years to actually really get some hardcore information on them, details. Most of them don't allow it, and most of them don't do it. So it's outside in. We're always analyzing by actions you've done. And again, they're actions that we think you've done, if that makes sense. It's not true. And look at, one of the Kathleen Ramsland, the doctor, she's probably one of the better ones that had done it. And she spent 5 years with BTK. and has a little book and a series and stuff. And I've talked to her a few times, and she does some really good work. That's one case. That's one particular where you can kind of get an inside perspective, so you can have a good analysis and come up with a good classification on them. But most of them is just guesswork.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And lucky detective work.
Yeah, a combination. Someone gets a parking ticket. That's how it, how it works, right? And but I wished, because I'm not one. I guess we live in a country, both U.S. and Canada, where we've decided against the death penalty overall. But if we're going to keep these prisoners alive, and we know that they've murdered, there's no question about the crimes. We should be able to analyze them, test them. They should have to go and take testings, in my opinion. But I guess that's against your civil rights. But there you go. Well,
let's go over to Anthony here. Can you talk a little bit more about the Highway of Tears?
Highway of Tears, yeah, that's a crazy situation. It really started in the 70s, I believe, late 70s. I interviewed the guy, Mike Smiley, who did the documentary on it. Spent actually a day with him and in LA. And it's a very complicated case because it's been going on for so many years. It's still, and there's two problems. One is the policing. RCMP only has 2 officers up there that run from Prince George to Prince Rupert. So that's a lot of territory to cover. And I know the last guy that they caught, he was a roofer out of Portland, Oregon. And he had an Aboriginal girl tied up in his hotel room, and he had beaten her and done all this stuff. He got convicted for 3 murders, I believe it was, rapes and murders. But he didn't do all of them. And that's sort of what I mean. It becomes an attraction point because it gets so much attention in media, and you hear about so many problems, like, we don't have enough policing up there. And of course, there's the idea of, okay, so we don't care about it because it's runaways and it's Native girls and all this. You hear all that stuff. And there's some truth to it, of course. But at the same point, there's only 2 police officers, right? It's a combination. We're such a big spread out country without enough money to put into resources like that stuff like this happens. And I don't know what you want me to say. I think there was an original serial killer. It sounds like that something happened to, either he disappeared or died or something. And it's just gone on and on since then for the last 40 plus years, just like the I-45. It becomes like and even if you don't pick up your victim there, they drop them there. They drop them on that highway. It could be someone that's murdered somewhere else and they get dropped there. I mean, in that particular place, the Highway of Tears, it's probably not too far. It might be Williams Lake up or something, and then they drop the body there. But it's not. Don't get me wrong. The I-45 has become more of a place to drop off because there's a lot more population down there.
So with the Highway of Tears, do you believe that it is somebody in the area, or rogue truck drivers, vagabond truck drivers?
I think it's a combination. I think the original person, from what I understand from the documentary maker, the original killer was from the area and knew the area. But the last 30 years, that's nothing to do with the original killer. It's become a zone to kill or to drop off. And for a lot of different reasons. So some of the killings will be local, and that's the other thing. How do you differentiate between runaways and lost girls and young women, if they were killed by someone they knew or if it was someone on the road? Like there's because a lot of these girls or people that are runaways or living on the street are not part of a family. That's the other problem, right?
Right.
So,
no, absolutely. Absolutely. And let's go to Jeremy's question here. Have you ever looked into Israel Keys? He was active in British Columbia in 2005, allegedly.
Yeah, I've had some interaction with that case, but more because of his involvement in certain cases that I've covered. Overall, I haven't followed him through. if you know what I mean. Like he's come in and out. As far as his alleged movement in BC, I don't know. I don't know if we really know that for sure, or how much of that's grown out of suspicion and circumstance. Let's just say. So I don't know if that's really a proven fact.
Definitely had a criminal record,
Mm-hmm.
murder, bank robbery, burglary,
Terrible man. Yeah, terrible.
arsonist, kidnapper, sex offender.
Terrible.
Oh,
Terrible situation. And the thing was with Keys is like that's a character that was other people were getting put away for killings of his. So that was sort of where it tied in with me, and that come out later. So yeah, he that was another one. If anything, that's a more elaborate serial killer that's been in the public as of late, I would say.
All right, let's go to Brown Dwarf here, who is asking, do you believe these serial killers could be possessed by entities like demons?
Ooh, that's going to get me into trouble. That's going to get me into trouble, you see, because I don't believe in demons, and I don't believe in Abrahamic religions as a reality. And so I had problems with Elizabeth Warren and Ed Warren and that, because I know in their, and I'm a Warren, and in their clan, in their organization, you had to be a Christian, and they believed in demons and Satan and a lot of these sort of things. I don't buy into that, and I haven't experienced it as a reality. Now, there are bad people alive and dead and spirits and all that. There's evil, don't get me wrong. I just don't believe in the possession and demons and the head twisting and all that. I haven't had any of that. And I don't think it's real. I think it's a presented. I just don't believe it. How's that? So no.
I think that's a fair answer.
Yeah,
I do. Let's go to alien believers. Do you believe Miami was the truth? I'm going to assume on this one that it has to do with the Miami alien from last week,
mall. Yeah,
the shopping mall. I'm not a buyer or a believer in it, but the one thing that weirds me out, that red flags me on this one, and maybe you do too, Alan, is the fact that television helicopters have some of the most powerful cameras in the world that we know of. And they were probably shooting that footage from at least a couple miles away. And everything is clear except for the alleged suspect, aka and or alien. I mean, I just found that incredibly funny.
Yeah. There's always strange things to it. I don't want to jump on any bandwagons. I don't know. I just say I don't know. I really don't. And actually, to tell you the truth, the Miami thing, I've just heard briefings up, because when I'm working, like I've been working on a big case and a book and all this stuff for a while. This one's been percolating for a long time. So I was doing a lot of work on that over this whole December, January break. I've done very little else. So I barely had any news on. I did hear about this case, but I didn't get into it. I don't want to get too wrapped up into things, because I've got this, I don't want to break my mindset. You know what I mean?
Oh, I don't blame you. You never want to take it personally.
No.
All right. Over on Twitch, Little Cat was asking, who do you think was behind the Springfield 3?
I plead the fifth. I don't like, in my position, it's hard for me to come out and say things. You know what I mean? I know. Because I've gone into cases and I've spent lots of times on certain ones, like years and a lot of work. And then I've learned things that I didn't know before. And it's made me kind of come up with an answer. So now, years later, after I've been doing this for a while, I look at this and you hear about this case and then you kind of get it. I hate getting too detailed and started because I haven't done any work in it. You know what I mean? I haven't had any interaction. There's so much difference when you actually go to a case and you actually meet the people and you see the stuff and you talk and you kind of get involved in it. You learn so much about it and the area and what's going on as compared to stuff you get off of the news and then the internet and everything else. So I don't really like to get into it too much because it's all secondhand. How's
I
that?
hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just for our audience, the Springfield 3 refers to an unsolved missing persons case that began June 7th, 1992, when friends Susie Streeter and Stacy McCall and Streeter's mother, Cheryl Levitt, went missing from Levitt's home in Springfield, Missouri. Ooh, that's kind of creepy.
Yeah. And so, and because you were alive in the 70s, what a different way we lived.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's a different place and how kids acted. How many times were you just out in the street and doing whatever, playing and doing whatever, and it's just different.
Well, I mean, it was usually you don't come inside until the street lights come on.
Yeah. So it's a different lifestyle. It's hard. It's so like I said, I'd like to be involved in the case better than that to give you answers. So
yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, it was a good time back then. And like I said, like for us, and I don't know what it was like for your family, but for our family, we never locked the door until, Clifford Olson went on his, 15 children?
Yeah.
That he kidnapped and murdered?
Well, yeah. And then it terrifies people, right? It starts getting,
Yeah.
The mothers get scared and everything gets crazy. And back then again, too, how little we had really as compared to now. And it's easy to feel insecure, when you got something like that going on.
Oh, absolutely. Major Lee, I have not seen your question, my friend. I'm looking for your questions and I have not seen them. I just want to point that out to you. Okay. It's not that we're ignoring them. I just have not seen your questions. I just wanted, as we got about 2.5 minutes here, Al, for you, what's your project next? What's something that is firing you up?
I've been working on a case. It's like in 1985 Seattle, there was a guy named Dan Lewis, and he on Christmas Eve he went to a family and knocked on the door and ended up killing the family of 4. And he killed them because he thought they were the wrong people. Like he was looking for the guy's father. And it sounds weird, but what it was this guy was part of a group called the Duck Club. And they believed that there was a communist trying to overthrow the US. And there was a Chinese army in British Columbia waiting to be called, and he thought this family the father was the one that's going to be doing the calling. This is all true. So anyway, I've got that from the 80s, and then the 60s goes through his father, who was blamed to be the communist, and what happened to him. And then it goes through to a detective who actually was on the case, and ends up that the detective that has to solve the case, it's his father who was part of the group killing.
Oh my.
So it's a really complex case, but it's really interesting. It's going to be 3 parts to it, but it just ties in 3 generations and how these things happen. It's been a really interesting case, but it's a lot of research, a lot of studying and getting involved.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, and with that, I mean, where did that one take place?
Seattle.
Oh, wow.
All Seattle and Spokane.
What is with Seattle? It must be something in the water there. I mean, Gary Ridgway, Ted Bundy, this guy you're talking about.
There's some pretty something in the water for sure. There is some. Seattle has a really scary feeling to it in certain places. You can feel a lot of pain and anger through there. That town has quite the history, and the buried city and everything. There's so much going on there that you feel when you're there. So yeah, I can see it, and it's not over.
Oh no. Alan, where can people find your books?
At all the bookstores, and if not, they can order it in. But all the main ones it's at, and like Chapters Indigo in Canada, and some Kohl's, and of course Amazon, the website. Yeah, you can even order signed books at the website. So
Beautiful.
There you go.
Beautiful. Alan, a pleasure having you back on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to do it later this year as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Anytime.
Take care, my friend. AlanRWarren.com is his website. Coming up next, ATM, that's Among the Missing with Steve Stockton. Then Robin Haynes will join us for the Cryptid Report. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this.
Okay, Chief. Thanks a lot.
Great job, my man. Thank you.
Yeah, be good.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye. I'll be right back. And then, I'll just be right back. Okay. Hello. So I went to the doctor's today. Just on a couple of things, just check up and everything like that. And one of the things I'm having troubles with is my nose. So if you see, I've sounded a little bit more nasally lately, and it's because of I broke my nose like about 5 times over my life, and it's if you imagine my septum being like this, extremely deviated, and so it's causing really bad sleep apnea for me. And I don't really like talking about my health and everything with the show and everything, because, you try and keep things a little bit different. But if you see me nodding off, I'm actually still listening. I don't even know I'm nodding off. I don't even know. And it's getting a little bit worse. So it's something that I'm working on. I'm going for a sleep test, hopefully in the next week to 2 weeks. And I did a sleep index today, and apparently the test is out of 24, and I scored a 20, which isn't very good. And so between that and over the last few months, I've gained probably 20, 25 pounds. It's causing a lot of stress on my breathing. So I have to go for a sleep test where they'll probably put me on a CPAP machine for the time being. Hi, Robin Hayes. How are you? You're looking beautiful. So I don't even know that I'm nodding off. And all of a sudden, boom, like I'm out and I'm hearing everything. I'm just not there. So I'm dealing with it. I'm re-signing up for my gym membership because I do want to be healthier, and I do want to lose the weight that I've gained. So it's something that I'm taking very personally, and I think everybody should, especially as you enter your 50s like I have. And I've still got a young son, and I still have my grandson out there that needs a grandpa. So I'm doing stuff about it. So I just want to let you guys know.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Please join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Jansky. Jansky is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It is that time of the night where we say hello to Steve Stockton from Among the Missing and another spooky story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. On April 20, 2014, 21-year-old Melanie Marie James left her home in Farmington, New Mexico to search for a job and never returned. According to her mother, Layla Melman, Melanie was walking down the street when she disappeared. Melanie was known for her friendly and outgoing personality, which made it easy for her to make friends with everyone. She was also affectionately described as a goofball and was always lively and bright. According to Melanie's sister, the last confirmed sighting of Melanie was near McKinley Elementary School, located on 20th Street and Butler Avenue in Farmington. Melanie's sister saw her in the company of an unidentified man. Her sister did not recognize the man, and Melanie was no longer there when she circled back to the school. When Melanie failed to return home, her mother immediately called and texted her. It wasn't usual for Melanie to disappear for a few days without any communication, so her mother became worried. Melanie always got back in contact with her family after a few hours or day. This time, something felt off. Layla's motherly instincts kicked into overdrive, and after failing to reach her daughter or find her in the community, she sought the assistance of the Farmington Police Department. In an interview with the Durango Herald, Layla recounted how the on-duty police officer declined to take the report since Melanie had not been missing for more than 48 hours. Layla informed the officer that it had already been 2 days since she had last seen or heard from her daughter, but the officer still refused to file the report. According to Layla, the officer said, quote, "The clock starts from the time you walk into my office," end quote. Frustrated, Layla had to wait 2 more days before involving the Farmington PD. Melanie's loved ones and community members searched anxiously for her while waiting for the authorities. However, nothing was found during the search. Later in the investigation, someone handed in a bag, which possibly belonged to Melanie, to the Farmington Police Department. The bag was spattered with what appeared to be bloodstains and contained 2 phones and a letter addressed to Melanie. Whether the bag was analyzed or simply discarded and stored in the evidence locker is unclear. In 2015, there was a potential sighting of Melanie, but the location is unknown. Witnesses claim to have seen her at a family dollar store in September of that year. However, very little information is available about this sighting, and Melanie's case remains unsolved. Melanie Marie James is described as a Native American female with brown hair and brown eyes, standing 5'1" to 5'2" tall and weighing between 115 and 120 pounds. She has a spade tattoo on her right pointer finger knuckle and was last seen wearing a blue bandana shirt, light blue jeans, and black sneakers. Anyone with any information is asked to contact the Farmington, New Mexico Police Department at 505-599-1070 and reference case number 32011-14.
And thank you to Steve Stockton for another great report. If you have information about that case, make sure you play it again to figure out where you can get your information to the police. That would help out. You want more stories like that, just head on over to Among the Missing on YouTube. That is what is it? Among the Missing. YouTube.com/Among the Missing. From the missing to the mysterious, it is Cryptid time. Robin Haynes joins us for the Cryptid Report. All right, Robin Haynes, nice to see you again. Welcome back.
Good to see you. It's always good to be here.
It is always nice to see you, my friend, and thank you for joining us as you come back in for another wild and crazy cryptid report. So thank you for this. It is dead of winter here in Canada, which means the animals are all huddled up trying to stay warm at this time of year. How does Sasquatch stay warm during the winter?
Well, number one, they get in the tunnels, they get in the caves, they'll find any abandoned farm, barn, houses that are dilapidated or whatever, and they will use those, to try to stay warm. The other thing people, there's been a lot of controversy on it, but the truth of it is they do know how to make fire. They will get the older pieces of wood, so that way there's less smoke, and they are more than capable. Some clans won't use it, but a lot of clans will. I know the ones in Michigan sure didn't have a problem using it at any given time. Of course, it's like with Canada. You're buried in snow for a large portion of the year. So they don't have a problem with it there. The ones here in South Carolina, I haven't noticed a lot from them that would indicate that they're using fire. I really don't think they do. But I think in these colder areas, they absolutely have to. And the other thing people don't realize is once in a great while, they will actually cook the meat over it. From the deer or whatever. They're perfectly fine to eat it raw, but some of them actually prefer it cooked, and they will.
Wow. You know, when they are out and about doing their thing at this time of year, are there is their fur much like deer or moose where the hair is hollow? That way they don't get cold. I mean, they may get cold onto the skin, but they don't get wet. I mean, their fur doesn't hold water in deer or moose. Is it pretty much the same for the Sasquatch? Do we
Um,
know?
Not really. They don't have fur. They have hair, just like we have human hair. That's what they have. They do not have fur. Um, it is not completely hollow in that shaft of the hair follicles. It isn't. Do I think that they're, and this is just an opinion, I can't base this on anything scientific. Do I think that they have a way where that hair is a little bit more waterproof than ours? I actually think they do, and I'll tell you why. When you find handprints from them, you also find a waxy film on their skin. And I have handprints like are on my house and on my windows that have been there for 5 years. I can't get these off. I can't. When they've left handprints on pillows and things in the house, it's taken me a year or more to get them off. So that oil base is there, and it's almost like a vernix that you would find on a newborn baby. I've never had it tested, but that's what it feels like, and that's what it looks like. If it's on their hands, there really is no reason to believe that there isn't possibly some of it that would be on their hair that might make it water repellent. Do I have a way to prove it? I actually do not. That's just something that I think. Now, I've seen them when they're wet before and they've been out in the rain and they look just saturated, just like we would. But I think, a lot of your animals, and they're not more animal than we are, they're a human hybrid, but they're adapted to being outside in all kinds of weather conditions. And so I would think that there would be something in that hair that would help keep it a little bit more protected. But yeah, they get wet really easy.
Yeah, I was just curious about how that kind of worked out for us. So, I know in the colder conditions that it's very tough for some people out there to try and stay warm, even in wearing 2-3 coats like we are right now in
Yeah.
the but I mean walking around in the snow barefoot, which is what they do because they don't have any shoes on,
Yeah.
it just amazes me. But that would mean that the creature is here 24/7. I was talking to somebody the other day. They asked me about whether or not I believe Sasquatch was of this dimension. Now, if it is jumping in and out of dimension
Right.
or walking 2 dimensions at once, then the cold really doesn't matter.
Yeah, they have their own homes that they're going to go to and they're going to be huddled up to try to stay warm. They absolutely do, because you have to remember that while all clans have the ability to move through dimensions and use all of their paranormal abilities, not all will. It depends on that specific clan, just like we have people that are Amish that choose not to use all of the modern conveniences that the rest of us have. It's a choice. But they are where they're in physical form at one point in time, they all are multidimensional. They have that ability to go in and out of the dimensions and travel through them at will. And it literally takes them a blink of an eye. I've had some that were in Texas and then all of a sudden, show up at my house like within 5 minutes. And then when they leave, they're right back in Texas and I get a confirmed sighting from somebody. It's like they come and go as they please. They do not migrate. I wish people would quit saying that they do. They will send scouts to follow the food source, but occasionally will they go and move from house to house? They might, because we have people, like a lot of our senior citizens that are in the cold weather, they go south, and try to get where the warmer climate's at. It's not that they can't do the same, but they are not migratory by any means. And they can go through dimensions. If they get too cold, they'll go someplace where it's warm and sunny and not have a problem. But it is very common to find them in cave systems. They will make underground tunnels. They will use, old barns, old homes, whatever they can get to for shelter, old sheds. If nobody's using it anymore, it's fair game for them.
Right. I actually had a Sasquatch report up here recently.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it happened 6 weeks ago, and it was on the highway heading north, about 3 miles from my house. And apparently, and when you're driving, it's right by the garbage dump, which makes sense. There's food there. Okay. And then across the highway from the garbage dump, there is this giant barren open field that goes up onto a mountain. And right near the highway, there is a set of stables. And the lady who told me this, First Nations lady who told me this, said she was driving the highway and all of a sudden she looked and she saw the creature run off the highway right towards the stables. And there were no horses in there, but it was about 8 feet tall, big, hairy, and she was so happy to see it.
Yeah, they will bed down right in the stables. I mean, that's, it's a shelter for them. There's hay, there's straw, bedding material, whatever, and they'll go and get right snuggled down in there, no problem. And if they've got a barn, in a stable that isn't being used at all, it's perfect for them. They don't have to worry about dealing with us or anybody else. They can just go in and stay warm and stay out of the elements. Their bodies are already acclimated to the temperature changes.
Yeah. I mean, so I understand that they can work their bodies towards the elements, because it wasn't really that cold 6 weeks ago, or,
Right.
it wasn't really that cold here. I mean, I was still wearing a hoodie, for goodness sakes, at that point, and here we are waiting for, 6 weeks ago, today's temperatures that we're getting today. But that being said, I mean, if the food sources are still going to move and migrate, because that's natural. So, I mean, how do they do that? Or how would a change in scenery like that affect them, knowing that it's not as cold as it's supposed to be anywhere around North America until now, and yet the food sources have already migrated out?
Well, to begin with, they're going to send the hunters for the clan to go. They have some that are chosen to do it, and they'll send them off. They acclimate to the temperatures very well. You would be amazed. Again, broken record that I am, energy and frequency. They can adjust to anything they want to do at any time, any place, anywhere. If they get too hot, if they get too cold, I mean, they adapt to those temperatures. They can regulate their bodies. There's going to be times that it might not be as comfortable, but they can still do it, or they're going to go into a dimension and go someplace that's more comfortable. But they will follow the food source, obviously. The other thing they'll do with the food sources is, if you notice, like, they may be hot and heavy hunting in one area, and that starts getting a little bit thin because they're taking all the, the deer or the rabbits or whatever from that area. They're smart enough to know to switch places. They will switch to another area to hunt, let that one repopulate, and then they'll go back and forth. So they'll have more than one area that they're going to hunt in. They're highly intelligent. They know what they're doing, more so than we do, and they will adjust it accordingly.
Right. And I think that's easy to see, because a lot of creatures, when you're out in nature, quick to adapt and overcome, Yeah, it was an amazing meeting with this, by chance, with this lady.
It sounds wonderful.
Oh yeah. Her husband, by the way, totally off topic. Until he bought a car, he'd walk everywhere. And almost every night when he was out on a walk, he would all of a sudden, at one point, get surrounded by 4 or 5 green lights. And next thing he would know is he'd wake up either at home or somewhere else.
Yep. Yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff out right now. It's not just the Sasquatch. There's a lot of things. The skies are full right now. We just had that issue in Miami, and everybody's freaking out about that. For the record, I think that was real. I think that some of the video of it was a little cheesy, but you don't have an entire police force there because kids are, causing trouble there. And the amount of things that have been in the sky is off the charts at this point in time. And so it doesn't surprise me at all. There's just too many things involved in that. At first glance, if you look at it, you think this is just a joke. It's cheesy. I'm not going to take it seriously. And then you pick it apart. And as you pick out different parts of it from someone, and this is just, again, my own opinion for whatever it's worth, someone that's been there, has been abducted multiple times and has seen more UFOs than ever wanted to. you start to pick up little things. And like I said, the biggest red flag for me that was actually something going on is the amount of police that were called in there. There was no excuse for that. That was a holdup. I mean, the entire police department was there. They stripped people's phones. I mean, there was a lot going on there. I wasn't impressed with the video footage. I'll be honest with you. I didn't really think that was helping their case at all, but it doesn't change what is.
The thing that I question about it now, I don't believe it was an alien, but that's just me. I think we're all going to have different opinions on that. But
Mhm.
here's the thing that does sway me towards your opinion is when I worked in media, I had friends who would fly in the helicopters during the, during reporting. Usually they were traffic copters or
Yeah.
whatever. But if something did happen, there was always cameras on them. And I know how far those cameras can zoom in. They can
Yeah.
zoom in 4 or 5 miles away and they can spot a person sitting on the rocks,
Yeah.
clear as day. And that helicopter, if you look at it, everything is clear. The roads are clear, the police cars are clear, the officers are clear on camera. The only thing that isn't clear is whatever that thing was in front of them.
Right. And the frequency and the energy is high off of them. So that would have screwed up the cameras. The other thing, too, that is really bizarre to me is they went through, if this was just kids and they got in trouble there, why did they swipe people's phones? People were told to give them their phones so that they could clear up any video and photos that they took. That makes no sense to me. The other thing, too, that I think is important is people have talked about it looking like it was a hologram. FYI, when the ETs come down, they can come in holographic form, they can come in robotic form, and they can come in a physical form. I've watched it, I've experienced it my whole life. And those little holograms that they come down in, let me tell you, those suckers can kick your butt just like anything else can. So they're just as dangerous as when they're in physical form. But it is possible that they would do that. Meanwhile, in the ship above is where the actual being is at, but they will come down in a holographic form. There are several people that said it looked like almost like it was a static and it would catch, for a minute, like it would glitch. And, just again, my experiences is I've seen that. I've literally been sitting in bed watching TV and all of a sudden looked at the end of my bed and seen 3 holographic forms standing at the end of my bed that were ETs. I wish this was stuff being made up because it would be easier to deal with, but it's not. It's the reality. And so I think there was just enough there. Am I going to put 1,000% stamp on it that it was real? Absolutely not. I wasn't there. But do I think that there's enough information there to give it the benefit of the doubt? Definitely.
Well, that's the only thing that really messes me up is that helicopter footage.
But if they have that, they're just like the cryptids are. They've got a higher frequency and higher energy. If you focus a camera directly on them and have them in the center of that camera, it will distort them every single time. It won't distort anything else, but it will them.
I totally agree with you on that. Totally agree with you. And that's why I'm saying I'm leaving the plausibility open, even though I don't believe it. It's not like the jellyfish UFO that's been going around the last 24 hours.
Don't even get me started on the jellyfish one. That one, bad memories. But like I said, I'm not going to put 100% stamp on it that it's real, but I am going to say that I think it is entirely possible just because of some key components that I picked up on it. Doesn't mean it is real, folks. It just means that are things in there that could point to it being real.
Well, that's where it is. That's where we're sitting right now with things as we try and figure it on out. And, and I agree with you about the frequency thing. Not everybody is a bad videographer or photographer to have every picture all of a sudden
terrible.
Blurry,
The ones I get of the Sasquatch, the only ones that are any good are the ones where I make sure they're off center from that lens. You cannot have them in the center. And any photographer that is going to come up on that probably isn't familiar with the cryptids and are going to try to get that, that money shot. They're going to have them center camera. just not a great idea, because it just is not as workable as one might think. Not saying that that's not what happened, but I'm just saying that that's a possibility for that.
Yeah, anything's a possibility. Robin, where can people get a hold of you?
You can find me at Robin Haynes on Facebook, not Robin L, but Robin Haynes, Haynes, or you can go to my website, www.paranormal-empowerment.com. Or my email is rlynne.forest, forest, people.com. And I always answer everybody.
And we love you, Robin. Thank you for
Love
coming
you
on
too.
for the shortened Cryptid Report with Robin Haynes. Coming up next, it's Dave 101 night and the strange news of the week. Jam-packed final half hour of Spaced Out Radio coming up next.
Enjoy.
We will. There you go. Hi, my brother Eugene. How are you? I don't know if anybody's been watching the NFL since the end of the regular season. I don't know how many of you are football fans, but I'm still really caught off guard with both Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick getting fired. Susan A. Heron, how are you? Casadorius Rex, welcome to SOR chat. One comment. Look at this bullshit here. One comment. Fruity sports show. Later. Go to hell. I'm in no mood for crap like that. It's like the idiot earlier on who said, oh, what great topic, Dave. I'm out. How many times do we do true crime on this show? Do we do it ever? It's like, come on. Get out of here. No time for you. Doug Shelby, the Doug Shelby. It's not because of Travis Taylor. It's literally every other receiver on the team can't catch a ball. It's ridiculous. Yes, Stephen Finnegan. Almost 2 years. January 13th be the 2-year anniversary that we lost Butch. Hard to believe. Hey, sweet Robbie G. You handsome devil, you. Handsome. Cliff Sy, nice to see you. Stargazer girl. Thank you. Mama Susan. Corey Cole. What's happening? I don't think the Eagles will take Belichick. I really don't. I could see him going to someplace like Houston. Right now, we are minus 19 Fahrenheit in studio. Minus 28 Celsius. So where having a beard comes in handy. Oh, Mama Susan. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mama Susan. Happy birthday to you. And many more. Willard Wright, I have not heard the phone audio. Chuck Fast, how you doing? You look like a jellyfish guy. I didn't think about that either. Big thank you to T-Bone ×2, Major Lee, Susan, Louie, and Big Dog for the super chats. Hi, Chrono Trigger. How you doing? Oh, this beard's keeping me warm right now. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It is that time of the night where we say, get off my lawn. It's a Dave 101.
It's time for Dave 101.
I've thought long and hard about doing this and what we should do for the Dave 101 tonight because nothing's really angered me this week. I did have some interesting things happen that have never happened before, but those I got to keep quiet. So that's what I figured I was going to talk about tonight. Keeping quiet. And I'm not talking dead air here. I'm not talking about just, keeping my mouth shut. Because Lord knows when you can fit a giant burger in the mouth like I can, okay, you don't shut your mouth too often. But let me tell you this. When it comes to information, sometimes you do have to learn to shut the hell up. There is a lot going on in the UFO world right now that if people really knew the true story, and I don't even know this story, I'm going paraphrasing here, that if people knew the true story of what is being hidden by the United States government, that they would maybe not even want to know about it. I think there is something more devious coming here, something way more than we could even believe. Why? Because secrets lead to big stories. Now, this isn't about jellyfish UFOs or Miami aliens or anything along those lines. This is about sometimes you need to keep quiet and just watch and learn about what is going on in the UFO world. My favorite uncle, he's been deceased for almost 20 years. God rest his soul. He taught me one thing that was very important in business. And that is when you go into your local tavern, there's the bartender, there's the servers, and there are the regulars. The rest are just patrons. The regulars sit up at the bar. Why? Because they want to be closer to the drink. They want to be closer to the action. And the bartender, over time, will get to know each and every one of those regulars, and those regulars will confide in him on everything about advice on how to treat your wife or your spouse, to how to pay off a mortgage, to how much in debt you are, to how much you gamble, to how much you smoke or blow up your nose or whatever it may be. The bartender knows everything. Yet, there's not a soul in that tavern that knows a thing about the bartender. Why? Because the bartender just shuts up and listens and keeps pouring that drink. The looser the lips, the more they sink ships. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make here, is we are in that time and that era of UFOs. Why? Because the posturing continues on trying to get information out and who we can trust and who we can't. I think that too many people have tried to burn people in this field for coming out with information, all because they don't like the word sources, or I can't say who I'm talking about, or where I got my information from, or my NDA does not allow me to speak about it. We are at a point as a UFO community where those answers just are not good enough. And who can blame the people who are literally fed up? Most people who are fed up are the experiencers, who absolutely just want answers to what has happened to them. However, experiencers are still being denied any type of credibility in this field, which still doesn't make sense. Why? We have the people who believe that they are on the precipice of breaking the disclosure story. However, realistically, they have no information that'll break that, because disclosure will never happen, at least within the next 10 to 12 years. There's a reason why I say that. Some people actually believe that 2035, 2036 is the years it'll happen. Now, one theory that I have brought forward over the last couple of years, and many of you may remember if you're longtime listeners, and that is the question, why now? Why now was asked by me a couple of years ago because it never made sense as to why this UFO story started to explode in 2017 with the introduction of Tom DeLonge's To the Stars Academy. It wasn't about UFOs or aliens at that point. It was about these crazy UAPs that were flying around. Unidentified aerial phenomena, we call it, but we now know that that means something different. I don't need to go over that again. But here's the thing. I said there were two reasons to why now. Number one, either Dr. Stephen Greer was correct, and that there would be an alien false flag to try and bring in a one world government that would really bring an end to anything fun in life. Or number two, which I thought was more plausible, there was a phone call. Let's call it a phone call from outer space. And the phone was a bunch of aliens calling in saying, hey guys, you may not know who we are, but we know who you are. And we're coming. And this is the date we are going to be there. So get ready, because there is no stopping this. And we will be there in 10 to 12 years. Maybe sooner, depending on the light yearing. You know? That's what I think happened. Now, as crazy as that thought may be, that a phone call was answered, it actually makes sense. And that's why we see everybody rushing, try and figure out what is going on and what to do next. We are literally on the precipice of the biggest story in humanity's history. And I believe in 10 to 12 years, we are going to find out whether or not we are truly alone in this universe. Now, I already personally know. I've seen the landings. I've seen the craft. I've seen the aliens. And I have no problem admitting that. Other people, though, who've never experienced, may be in for a real rude awakening when they find out we are not alone. That is where we stand. And people I am talking to behind the scenes, I have asked that question. Why now? And they also believe the phone call was answered. So should we be afraid? Well, it all depends on what you feel is right. I think there's going to be a lot of people afraid when it comes out. When old Jimmy the Gray Alien walks out of that aircraft for the first time and says, hey, people, we're here. And guess what? We're not going anywhere. We're going to share this planet with you. I think that's what happens. And why not? Don't you think it's time? It's going to shift the entire paradigm of what we know of humanity. We'll find out whether or not, if there's a God. We'll find out whether or not there's life after death. We'll find out whether or not that we could live on this planet bill-free and duty-free instead of paying taxes and all that crap. I think that it's plausible that we could see it all happen within our lifetimes. And if you think about it, 12 years isn't that long. 13 years isn't that long, if that. Now, a lot of people will say, Dave, that's a conspiracy theory that people are making up. And it could be. There's always that point that it could be. But people, I got to tell you something. There are those out there who really want their messages out. They do. They want their messages, their stories, their experiences out so bad that they are willing to risk their lives for it. They are called whistleblowers. I've talked to one of them recently. And it was an amazing experience having that conversation. Why is it important to have that conversation? Why is it scary? Because this person has a lot to lose. See, journalism 101 is you never give up your source. Because a number of things can happen when you give up a source. Number one, they could get real angry with you and cut you off the information guide. Number two, they could lose their job, their position, everything, because you, a complete stranger to them, or companion, or whatever you want to call it, they could literally lose their job, their livelihood. They could go to jail. Number three, tensions in the family, because when you're dealing with top secret stuff, you are really opening up a Pandora's box of getting a lot of people in trouble with, especially the United States government. Nobody wants that. Not even the whistleblowers. The one whistleblower told me basically, and I'm paraphrasing, he isn't afraid of anything, but he is afraid of his government. Because you never know what they're going to do or how they're going to react. First, it strip you of your detail, of your top secret clearance, and then it breaks down from there. If you want those people to continue to talk to people like me, As an audience, we need you to support the sources. It's tough because I see it all the time online. Who is it? Just out them already. Who is it? Well, if I have an insider that's going to feed me a lot of information, doesn't matter whether it's UFOs. Let's say it's around your mayoral candidate, or it's on an NFL game, or it's on a hockey game, or if it's on a podcast where you heard it, you have to take it with a grain of salt. But even though you take it with a grain of salt, you also have to keep your eyes and ears open in case something else breaks. Now, for my whistleblower guy that I was talking to on the weekend, I can tell you this. He seems like a very good guy. He seems very promising about wanting to come out to the public. But first, he has to wait until he is granted permission and security clearance to do so. I wouldn't want to live like that, where your entire life is literally guarded, especially when you get older. Your life is guarded on every word you say with the threat of potential prison time, not even for a short time, but for your entire rest of your life. Leavenworth cannot be that fun. It just can't. I can't see or imagine any prison having fun like that. But when it comes to sources, some of us are real journalists covering this, and even a lot of the citizen journalists are following this as well to their benefit. And that is learning when to shut your mouth. Let the information come out. It's going to continue to trickle, but if you're waiting there ready to hammer, jump, and pounce on anything because you're excited that disclosure actually came, no, don't. Because you're only hurting yourself and your own image and reputation. We don't want that around here. We want to make sure that you are good to go. We want to make sure that you're getting the facts. We want to make sure that we are delivering to you that when we say sources say, that we've earned enough trust with you that we know what we're talking about and we aren't going to burn you as an audience. That is your Dave 101. Let's go straight to the news.
What time is it?
It's time for Shirky Poo's news!
All right, let's get right to it, shall we? Oh, you should feel bad for this young lady. Real bad. Keep your tissues ready. Brushing up on language and customs might be worth looking into when visiting a foreign country. An American TikToker named Angela, known by her social media account, Real PhD Foodie, found out the hard way after a trek to France didn't go very well, despite her efforts to fit in with the community. In a recent TikTok video entitled "France Made Me Cry," Angela traveled to Lyon, France, her first stop in an 8-city solo trek across Europe. A tearful beret-wearing Angela said she didn't recommend visiting Lyon if you don't speak French. Despite her hat choice, Angela said she couldn't fit in. It was my first time visiting. To be honest, the experience is very isolating. And don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful city. It just has a lot to see or do and to discover. But I don't recommend it for solo travelers or for someone who doesn't speak French because it's a very isolating experience. The food and travel influencer described the locals as very indifferent, noting that she had no problem meeting and socializing with others in Germany and Italy. But in France, people make you feel bad for not knowing their culture or speaking their language. I haven't really met anybody here, and I've been here for 5 or 6 days now. I almost feel stupid for coming in here, spending money. I even bought a French beret hat. I'm here to learn and explore the experience, but it's just, I really don't like it. In another video from Lyon, Angela whined about how there weren't any restaurants open on New Year's Eve. My gosh. Real sense of entitlement there, don't you think? Real sense of entitlement. Yeah, the community wasn't very good to her on Twitter. I'd say that. Let's move on. Here we go. This is in Leeds, Alabama. A man crashed his car outside a Bass Pro Shop in Alabama, stripped down to his birthday suit, then plunged into the giant aquarium inside the store, police said. The ordeal happened Thursday night in front of shocked shoppers in the town just outside of Birmingham, Leeds Police Chief Paul Irwin said. Well, this sounds good. 42-year-old Alabama man, surprised he's not from Florida, did a cannonball leap into the aquarium, then stood under a waterfall. He left the water to yell at the two officers, then dove back into the aquarium, she said. Oh, this is great. You know, have you ever seen any of these Bass Pro Shops aquariums? They're massive. Absolutely massive. Well, the man eventually climbed over the side of the aquarium and fell to the concrete floor below. Police then apprehended him. The news site AI.com reported he faces now several charges, including public lewdness, disorderly conduct, and criminal mischief. Well, that's pretty fun. What's this one here? Let's go to this one. A Catholic priest in Missouri has been found guilty by the Church of soliciting sex from an adult while hearing a confession. You heard me right. As Father Ignacio Medina, a priest with the Diocese of Jefferson City, was deemed guilty by decree by the dicastery for the doctrine of the faith in Rome. He was performing or permanently deprived from holding any church office and hearing confessions from parishioners, effective immediately, the diocese said. He was also barred from celebrating Mass to the public unless his bishop grants him permission, which will only happen in extraordinary circumstances. Excuse me. Medina, who was the pastor of Our Lady of the Lake Parish in Lake Ozark, well, he did not appeal the charge. An investigation into Medina was launched by Bishop W. Sean McKnight of Jefferson City after a report was filed through the Diocese Abuse Hotline. I want to be clear that sexual solicitation during confession is a sacrilege, a crime in our church, and a grave form of abuse. It cannot be tolerated, McKnight said. This is how the church has gotten themselves in other hot water. You just don't want to do things like that. No, that's a penalty. That's a penalty. You don't want to do that. Oh, we're going to end it right there. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAF, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X or Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I know you're out there somewhere. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio, SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us. Because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. The sheets are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. That was good. That was good. Get that light out of my face. Katie Page tomorrow night, people. We're in for a good show tomorrow night. Okay. What am I doing here? Need that. Don't need that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. As we're getting ready to do the downloads here, or uploads, Katie Page, once again, tomorrow night, talking to UFO studies. And all of you, I expect all of you there. On that note, I'm going to say goodnight to each and every one of you. Give you the old tip of the hat there. And you guys have a great night. We'll see you all tomorrow. Okay? See you then.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.